In episode 6, once again, is a five-part story. So part 1 begins at Cat's lair, and in the console room where it's a joyous, happy day for all the Thundercats, because what started as 7 now became 10. Well, everything on Earth seems to be peaceful, or so that's the case. That is until Panthro just pleaded his case that he's not so sure, because peace, according to what he says in his case, will take a lot for him to get used to. Well, according to Snarf, when he agrees with Panthro, he says he just couldn't stand to be unemployed. Well, Lynx-o, on the other hand, has his turn to plead his case to say keeping the peace may not be as simple as it looks, and he's not kidding. Ninja Tara has a suggestion. She says, well, there are always fire drills and maintenance routines. Well, Tiger has his turn to plead his case. Well, there's always the mutants. We can always count on them to cause some trouble. Wily Kid, however, has a suggestion that she should teach the Thundercat technology to all the friends on Third Earth. Now, Wily Cat, who agrees with his sister, said even better, we can use some prosperity thanks to technology. Even Panthro agrees with the Thunder Kittens. It said that's the way to handle things. So Snar says, I got a suggestion. Why don't we throw a big feast so our friends can meet the three Thundarians, Pumyra, Lynx-o, and Bengali. Now Lionel, who agrees with Snarf, and said that's not a bad idea. And then he looked over his shoulder to ask Pumyra of what she and her friends had thought of it. Well, that sounds like a good idea, Pumyra said. So Snarf says, let me get a menu and go to the Burble Village right away. And so after that, he heads off. Then Bengali has his turn to plead his case to say, looks like we're going to have our hands full, even with Mumm-ra is now gone. Then suddenly the three Dundarians, including Lionel, just heard Chitara says, Mumm-ra. Then when Chitara said that name again, now the four Thundercats are wondering what was going on with her. So Panthro, who was there, asked her, are you okay? Then Lionel has his turn to ask a question. What's going on with you, Chitara? Chitara says that she's not sure of it. I just can't believe Mumm-ra's really gone, Chitara said. Finished for good. So back with Lionel, who just left the console room and went into his room, he couldn't help but ask himself, is Mumm-ra really gone? Then Lionel also pleaded a case to say he can hardly believe it himself, and he knows exactly how Chitara felt. But then Jaga's spirit appeared. Then Jaga asked the question, can you really be sure that he's really gone for good? Then Lionel turns around to look at Jaga's spirit and then asks the question, how could it be possible that he had somehow survived? Then flashback, we go back to episode 5 when Mumm-ra, the last time we saw him, he opened up the talisman that has the Star of Thunder that was inside. And he was on Fire Rock Mountain. And when Mumm-ra opened up the talisman, it causes the mountain to fall apart. Then back to the present in Lionel's room. That's when Lionel told Jaga that there is no way that Mumm-ra could survive. That's impossible, he said. Then Jaga just let something slip to Lionel to say, well, even if it were true, the evil itself can never be destroyed itself. It can only be secured by strength encouraged by itself, Jaga said to Lionel. Especially with the evil power just like Mumm-ra's, Jaga said. So ask yourself this question, Jaga said. Who's to say that Mumm-ra's really gone forever? And then after that, Jaga disappeared. After Lionel had thought about what Jaga said, he suddenly dismissed it and said that there's no way. It's not possible. There's no way that Mumm-ra could have survived somehow. So meanwhile, at Fire Rock Mountain, there's Mumm-ra coming up from out of the rubble, and there's his sidekick, Mumm-mutt. So Mumm-ra decided to tell his sidekick to take him to the Black Pyramid so he can recharge, because he was weak. So Mumm-mutt, who's Mumm-ra's sidekick, agrees to take his companion to the Black Pyramid. So meanwhile, at the Black Pyramid's tomb chamber, so before Mumm-ra can rest in his sarcophagus, he told his sidekick that he had survived the explosion from the star of Thundera, as we saw back in part 5, in episode 5, of course. So what did Mumm-ra do? He does what any person should do. He told his sidekick Mumm-ra, now listen, while I recuperate in my sarcophagus, you must take my place, he said. So what Mumm-ra did is that he transformed his canine companion into the double of himself. So after that, Mumm-ra says, well, it's not exactly what I had in mind, but you'll have to do. Now pay attention. I have a favor for you, he said. Now, what was Mumm-ra's favor? I can't say for sure. So meanwhile, at the Burble village, now you're probably wondering what was Snarf doing there? Well, he did what he was planning to do. He gathers all the food for that big feast he was planning about. At least that's what he told the Thundercats back at the Kessler's console room. Robert Bill, the leader of the Burbles, had warned Snarf about those peppers that Snarf by accident had tried out. It's very, very hot. Then, long story short, Snarf just saw Mumm-mutt, who's Mumm-ra's canine companion, flying by, and then he was asking Roberbill, the leader of the Burbles, what it was and what is going on. Well, it looks like Mumm-mutt, Roberbill said, and I think he's in an awful hurry. So Snarf told Roberbill, if I'm not mistaken, he's heading towards Castle Plundar. I'll be right back, Snarf said, and so he heads off. Meanwhile, at Castle Plondar, remember Mumm-mutt, who was Mumm-ra's sidekick? He just went inside the window and transformed himself into Mumm-ra, and he appeared right in front of the mutants. So when the mutants heard that Mumm-ra was coming in, they were in shock. They couldn't believe it. So Sly, the leader of the mutants, says, Mumm-ra, is that you? So Jackalman has his turn to say, but that's impossible. Even Volterman couldn't believe it and says, by golly, you're alive. And so Mumm-ra comes closer and closer to the mutants. So Mumm-ra asked the mutants a question. Do you really think that I, Mumm-ra the Ever-Living, can ever be finished? Anyway, back with Snarf, who just left the Burble village moments ago, he has to get up to the tower part of the castle to find out what is going on. Well, luckily for Snarf, long story short, he uses his ingenuity. So, thanks to that, it paid off. So, good news for Snarf, he made it to the castle, but not exactly the way it's planned. Then, before you know it, Snarf just overheard a conversation between Mumm-ra and the mutants. So, Mumm-ra's voice told the mutants, it's about time that we release the Lunatacs. So, not even the Thundercats themselves could resist them. Anyway, Snarf, who's outside the castle, pulls himself up to continue to hear the conversation between Mumm-ra and the mutants. So back inside the castle, that's when Slive went first to ask a question. Lunatacs, the monkey went next to ask a question. You mean they're here? You mean they're alive? Volterman asked. Well, Mumm-ra just let slip to the mutants to say that first of all, yes, they are here. And second of all, they're hardly alive. Then Mumm-ra told the mutants something they never heard before. He said a long time ago, long before you were even here, they once tried to overthrow me, Mumm-ra said, and so for that, I had to punish them. So after Mumm-ra told the mutants this, that's when Jackalman goes first to ask a question. You mean you destroyed them? Not really, Mumm-ra said, but something even worse than that. I encased them in the lava, Mumm-ra said. So what Mumm-ra also did was to explain to the mutants a favor that must be involved. He says, well, now's about time we set them free, Mumm-ra said. Volterman of the mutants panicked and says, no, not the Lunatacs, not them. We'll do anything you say, Volterman says, but please, anything but that. Back outside the castle, as Snarf was struggling to get himself up, That's when Monkey has his turn to plead his case and says, "Let them stay in that lava." Then Jackalman has his turn to plead his case. Besides, they're much too vicious for us. Back inside the castle, that's when Mumm-ra says, "I agree with you." And that's because, as Mumm-ra says in his case, it was all part of the plan. Even Sly, the leader of the mutants, agree with him. Then it's his turn to plead his case to say that the Lunatics are somewhat uncontrollable. But Mumm-ra dismissed that claim and says, "Don't be ridiculous. If I can entomb them and encase them once, then I'll do it again." And that's going to happen after the Thundercats are taken care of, Mumm-ra said, personally. Then Jackalman of the mutants want to know, where are they? Where can we find them? Well, at Darkside, of course, Mumm-ra said. "You mean at the Forbidden Territory?" Monkey asked. "Well," Voltman says when it's his turn to plead his case, "even if we did find them, and if it is true, how are we going to free them?" "That," Mumm-ra said, "would be your job. Besides, in my case, you are the technical genius after all." And of course, Mumm-ra's not kidding. And so after that, he left. So after Mumm-ra changed it to Mumm-mutt, which the mutants are not aware of, and that's when Mumm-mutt went back to the Black Pyramid. Back with Snarf, who's still outside the castle, he sees Mumm-mutt flying past him through the window. And that's when Snarf saw that Mumm-mutt's heading back to the pyramid. So after Mumm-mutt left, that's when Snarf says, "Well, this is weird. Just moments ago I heard Mumm-ra inside." So he pulls himself up again. Back inside, Sly, the leader of the mutants, continued to have a conversation with the mutants to say, "You know something? Mumm-ra is right. If anyone can destroy the Thundercats, those lunatics can do the job for us," Sly said. But then Jackalman just heard something coming from outside. Then when Jackalman looks over his shoulder, he sees Snarf looking from outside the window. So when the rest of the mutants saw Snarf outside, just like what Jackalman did, that's when Snarf says, "Uh-oh, I've been spotted. I gotta get out of here." And so that's what he did. So by the time that the mutants looked out the window and saw that Snarf had dove into the moat, that's when the mutants panicked. And so was Vultureman. He said, "Snarf must have overheard us somehow," he said. So Sly, the leader of the mutants, told the mutants, "Well, what are we waiting for? We have to catch him before he tells the news to the Thundercats." So that's what the mutants did, and they decided to pursue Snarf. Back with Lionel, who had just arrived at the Burble village, he was asking Bill, the leader of the Burbles, has he seen Snarf anywhere? "Well, he was just here," Burble said, "but now he just left moments ago," he said. So Bill also said that earlier Snarf just saw Mumm-mutt heading to Castle Plondar, and he went chasing after him, and he couldn't stop him. But before Lionel could find out further from Bill, the leader of the Burbles, the Sword of Omens just told Lionel that there was something wrong. So just like what any good guy would do, Lionel looked through the sword's eye to tell him what was going on. And there he sees it. Snarf, who had just left Castle Plondar moments ago, is now being pursued by the mutants. So Lionel knows what to do. He does what any good guy would do. Project the Thundercat signal from his sword, and so that's what he did. Meanwhile, at Cat's lair, the Thundercat that saw the signal first was Wily Cat, and he told Panther what happened. "I'll get the Thunder Tank," Panther said, and so that's what he did. And so the Thunder Tank is now on its way to the Burble village. Back with Snarf, who was still being pursued by the mutants, we have Vultureman in the flying machine, Monkey and Jackalman in the couple Sky Cutters, and Slythe in the Nose Diver. Back with Snarf after Voltman had lost him in the trees, he was still running until something or someone grabbed him from behind. It's Lino. So Lino told Snarf, "Relax, it's me." And Snarf says, "Oh, Lino, thank goodness it's you." But then a Sky Cutter comes out of nowhere to attack them. So after the brief attack, both Snarf and Lino ran off. Meanwhile, Jackalman of the Mutants is still pursuing them in a sky cutter. So as Jackalman continues to pursue, Lino and Snarf continued running. That was until Jackalman had crashed into a tree. So back with the Thundercats who just left the lair moments ago, we got the Thunder Kittens and a couple of spaceports, and we have Chitara, Panthro, and Tigra in the Thunder Tank. Well, Chitara knows what to do. She gets the cannon ready. In the meantime, the three vehicles, which is Monkey in the Sky Cutter, Vultureman in the Flying Machine, and Scythe in the Nosediver coming to attack them. So long story short, after the Thunderkins had suggested to take care of the flying machine, so it's up to the Thunder Tank to take care of the rest of the two vehicles, a Sky Cutter and a Nosediver. So luckily for Chitara, she manages to damage Monkey with a cannon, and then Monkey went out of control. Tigra, on the other hand, uses the front cannon to take care of Slide, the leader of the mutants in the Nosediver. Literally. Back with the Thunder Kittens, they decided to go one-on-one with Vultureman in the flying machine. But, unfortunately, during the battle with Vultureman on the flying machine, things didn't go so well for Wildcat, and he was knocked off the spaceport. But luckily for his sister, Wily Kit, she came to the rescue and saves her brother when she did, and luckily she did so. But then, Vultureman in the flying machine is being attacked by Pumyra and Bengali in the Thunderclaw. And luckily, they showed up when they did. Then, Vultureman, as he says in his case, knew that he and the mutants couldn't stand a chance. They were outnumbered. So they decided to go back to Castle Plundar. Down below, Lino and Snarf were watching Pumyra and Bengali shooting at the flying machine. And of course, Lino made a compliment with Pumyra. So after the mutants went back to Castle Plundar, that's when Lionel told Snarf, "We gotta go back to Cat's lair, so that way you can tell us what you found out and what was going on." So meanwhile, in the Cat's lair's control room, Snarf just told Lionel and the rest of the Thundercats that were there what had happened and what the mutants just said while he was at Castle Plundar. And now he's left to wonder to ask Lynx-o a question. Who are the Lunatacs anyway? Because, as Snarf also said, he had overheard Mumm-ra talking to the mutants about them. However, after hearing the bad news, that's when Lynx-o was more than happy to explain. Well, Lynx-o said that there were raiders once upon a time on the moons of Plundar where they come from. So, Tigra made a suggestion that they should learn more about them, the Thundercats that is, but now here comes the problem. How are they going to do that? So Lynx-o had an idea. He said the only way that the Thundercats can learn about the Lunatics is if he can find something that he can touch, like a braille board or something. Since Panthro had no idea what a braille board is, Lynx-o was more than happy to tell him about it. So Lynx-o suggested that the braille board must be built right away, and so Lino agrees with Lynx-o's idea. He said if that's the only way we can learn about the Lunatics, then that's what we'll do, if that's the case. So Lino suggested a plan that Panthro and Tigra will work on the braille board with Lynx-o, while the rest can check every area on Third Earth. So the Thundercats agreed, and that's what they did. So later, at Far Rock Mountain, first we see Pumyra in the Hovercat, and of course Bengali and the Thunderclaw, that they saw the mutants that were also there. So Bengali made a suggestion to Pumyra that they can land behind the cliff so they could find out what they're up to and what was going on there. So back with the mutants, we have Vultureman and the Fist Pounder, Scythe and the Nosediver, and we have Monkey and the Jackalman and a couple of Sky Cutters. So Jackalman of the mutants went first to speak in his case to say this must be Darkseid, but as he says, he didn't like the look of it. Then Jackalman also says that it's scary over there. Then Scythe, the leader of the mutants, asked a question, "Really? More scarier than Mumm-ra? So after Jackman thought about it, says, okay, well, let's just get it over with. So Volterman has his turn to plead his case. He said, according to the map that was given to him by Mumm-ra himself, all they had to do is find the three mountain peaks that's just not that far away. So when the rest of the mutants saw the three mountain peaks up ahead, they knew that what Volterman said was true. Now, Mongian didn't like the looks of the place either, just as Jackalman did. So it says, okay, let's go. So off the vehicles went, but none of the mutants were aware that watching them were Bengali and Pumyra. So Pumyra made a suggestion to Bengali that they should follow them. But Bengali tells her no way, and they don't stand a chance against Andranium. And so he made a suggestion that they should report back at Castlair, and so that's what they did. So meanwhile, back at Castlair, after Pumyra and Bengali came back, I'm guessing it was neither Pumyra or Bengali who told this bad news to Lynx-o. I can't say for sure. But although curious, Pumyra wants to know from Lynx-o, what is Dark Side? Where is it? Well, Lynx-o was more than happy to explain. As legend has it, they're the forbidden territories right here on Third Earth. And of course, Snarf pleads his case to say there are a bunch of creatures and monsters and everything else that were living there. Also, as Lynx-o says in his case, what Pumyra and Bengali had already known, that it was guarded by the Thundranium pits in the Far Rock Mountains themselves. But Lionel says that there's a problem because there's only one rule, that no Thundercat has ever crossed there before. Even though Snarf agrees with him and says, well, I just had a bad feeling they may sooner or later break that rule. So back with the mutants, they have arrived at the Forest of Mist. So Jackalman asks Slide, the leader of the mutants, a question. Are you sure we're going the right way? How should I know? Slide asked. Then Slide pleaded his case that it's his first time on Darkseid, and so were the rest of the mutants. So then Monkey looks at Volterman and asks the question, how many mountain peaks did we say we had to find? 3, Volterman said. Then Monkey says, well, I guess we don't have to look that far because there they are now. The Lunatacs, just like what Mumm-ra said. And they're encased in lava, of course. Back with the Thundercats who just left the lair moments ago, they're now in the Thunder Tank. There are Lynx-o, Cheetara, and Snarf. They had just arrived at Fire Rock Mountain. So on the way there, Lynx-o discussed a plan. He says we may never be able to go through Fire Rock Mountain, but we have an idea to catch the mutants on their way out. So even though Cheetara agrees but suggested that there must be another way through Darkseid somehow. So anyway, back with the mutants. Of course, watching them is Mumm-mutt, who's Mumm-ra's sidekick. So, Slythe, the leader of the mutants, he decided to make a channel for the lava flow. That was part of Plan A. So when he went back to Volterman and then pleads his case to say, I hope this plan works. Oh, by the way, Jackalman's in the Fist Pounder and Munkin's in the Sky Cutter. Then Sly, the leader of the mutants, made the threat clear to Volterman to say if the plan doesn't work, then Mumm-ra will have his beak for it. Then Volterman has his turn to plead his case to say, just trust me on this, okay? So long story short, after Sly had pleaded his case, that's when Munkin says, oh, come on, you two, knock it off. We don't have time to argue about it. Just tell me what the plan is. That was the question to Volterman. So Volterman says, okay, pay attention. Here's the plan. All you have to do is fly that sky cutter over there to the end of that channel that Slythe built. So that way the molten lava can surround the Lunatacs themselves so it can melt the rock. While that's going on, Jackalman was told by Volterman that his job was to seal up the rest of the lava flow itself with a fist pounder. Then Slythe has his turn to plead his case to make a threat clear to Jackalman to say, whatever you do, don't mess this up. Because if you do, you'll end up as a bath mat in Mumm-ra's pyramid. So now the plan's underway. That's when Volterman told Monkey, you know what to do. Go do it. And so that's what Monkey did in the Sky Cutter. He flew towards the volcano and he did what Voltman said to do, blast through the heart of the volcano so that the lava could flow through the channel. So that's just what happened. So now that part one of the plan is working already, that's when Voltman looks at Giacomo and says, "Hold your position, stand by." "Okay," Giacomo says, "standing by." And so, well, now that the lava is covering around the Lunatacs, it's now Giacomo's job to seal up the rest of the lava flow, and he did it without any mistakes at all. So anyway, while Giacomo was doing his job, Slide just asked Voltman a question. "What do we do now?" "Well, hide, of course," Voltman said, and so both Slide and Voltman ran off and hid behind a rock. So long story short, while the lava continues to melt through the molten rock, back with the Thundercats in the Thunder Tank, they had arrived at the Fire Rock Mountain. And then Lionel saw that there's a volcanic eruption that's coming from nearby. So Lionel knows what to do. To investigate further, he uses the sword's eye to look through to find out what's going on. And there Lionel saw it. The Lunatics that were encased in lava, and now they're breaking free. After Lionel got through looking through the sword's eye, he knew that this is a serious problem, and he told this bad news to Chitara and Snarf. So Lionel looks at Chitara and says, "We gotta get to Darkseid and fast. But can they do it in time? Or will this be a serious disaster?" Well, there's only one way to find out, but right now, that's the end of episode 6 in part 1.